Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Dallin Malm, and this is the Momentum Theory Podcast. This show features conversations with athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs who are committed to mastering their craft, not for the sake of mastery itself, but to better magnify their talents and serve those around them. Today's guest is a serial entrepreneur turned public servant. His first break came out of a 600 square foot apartment, stacked to the ceiling with rare books he bought and sold throughout his time in college. From there, he found his way into pest control, and that launched one of the most successful ventures that would act as rocket fuel for the trajectory of his career. He partnered with friends and started his own pest control branch the hard way in McAllen, Texas, going door to door, having multiple 1,000-account summers just to sustain the growth, which ultimately led to a record-breaking exit in 2023. He's since shifted that grit to civic life, serving as the mayor of River Heights, Utah, and now in the state legislature. Our conversation will go over his origin story, his mentor who helped him, a 1.9 GPA kid, reach the pinnacle of educational success. We'll also dig into his early scrappiness, what changed after he sold his business. We'll unpack John Maxwell's leadership levels, stories about public service, and of course his new youth leadership foundation. And yes, we will open with a wild Muhammad Ali story. Please enjoy my conversation with Jason Thompson.
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
You ask, what is our aim? Victory. Victory, however long and hard the road may be.
This will be remembered forever as the greatest day in the history of the Tour de France. You believe in miracles? Yes!
You're one of the most dynamic people I've ever met. And I think a lot of other people who know you would say the same thing about you. So, of course, we're going to start with your incredible story behind the picture of you as a young man with your fist up to the jaw of Muhammad Ali. Could you tell that whole story? That's one that just never gets old for me.
It's a fun story. I was in high school. I think I was a junior in high school, and I was working as a busboy at the Weston Resort next to my house in Weston, Florida. And I was working in the restaurant as a busboy, and there was a sign advertising Muhammad Ali being there for a gala or for a fundraiser event. And you know me, I'm not bashful. So I had the idea, I knew the day that it was happening, so I had the idea that I would stake the place out. It was there were no interior doors, so the resort had all exterior doors, so you could see all the exterior doors. You didn't have to go in an elevator and go up and down or whatever. Yeah. So I was just very observant, and I watched, and I noticed some really, really big dudes leaving one of the rooms, and of course I thought to myself, those are bodyguards. That's Muhammad Ali's room. So, and I had been looking around for probably an hour or two. Anyways, I went and knocked on the door. A woman opened the door and looked, and I was this 15-year-old kid. That was, I was nervous. It was a little awkward. I said, "Is this Muhammad Ali's room?" And she looked at me kind of shocked, like, "How would you know that this is a room?" And she said to me, "How did you know where we were at?" And I said, "I was just watching, and I saw some guys leave, and I just thought that it might be." And she smiled, and she said, "Well, if you don't tell anybody else where we're at, you can come in and meet my husband." I went in, and it was like a studio apartment. So there was like a little living room area with a couch and love seat and a kitchenette. She said, "Why don't you have a seat on the couch, and I'll go get my husband." So immediately my mind went to, she's calling those bodyguards back. She's calling the police. I don't know what's going on.
I'm in too deep now.
Yeah. It seemed like a half an hour that I sat on the couch. Just probably 5 minutes. So after what seemed like forever, the bedroom door opens, and she walks out with her husband, with Muhammad Ali. And he was in a suit, so he had apparently already just gotten dressed for the event that he was getting ready to go down to. And I got to spend about a half an hour with Muhammad Ali and his wife.
Unreal.
And it was just such a cool experience. And there was a table in the kitchenette, and it had a whole bunch of mail on it. And his wife told me that he reads every piece of fan mail that he gets, and she said that's what keeps him going. And I thought that was pretty special. I thought that was pretty cool that he really cared about his fans a ton. But we stood up to take a picture. I had an old Polaroid camera with me. We stood up to take a picture, and he grabbed my hand and put it into a fist, and he stuck it up to his face, and I had no idea what he was doing. And she said, "My husband wants to take a picture of you punching him." And so I put my hand to his face and my fist to his face, and she took the picture of me punching the greatest of greats.
That is one of my favorite pictures of you.
It's pretty cool.
That's so cool, man. I remember sitting in your office a couple of years ago and looking around the horseshoe, if you will, and just seeing pictures of you with some really amazing people. You've had the chance to meet a lot of influential people in your life. Before we drill deep into the development of Jason, the entrepreneur, the politician, the leader, I thought it would be good if we set the stage by better understanding what impacted you most in your younger years. So let's start here. Who would you consider some of your most influential figures in your early life, both inside and outside your family?
Inside my family, my dad was really influential. And it was just in a different way. I just watched my dad struggled always. My mom and dad always had financial struggles. There were just different life struggles. It seemed like struggle was just always a part of our life. And I watched my dad work multiple jobs, 2 and 3 jobs sometimes, to be able to support my family. And I'll tell you, I didn't realize it as a kid, but now looking back, he taught me how to work hard. He worked and worked and worked. And so I'm really grateful for him and his example. My older brother, Cliff, was in the Army. I've always looked up to Cliff. He was the soldier that as a little kid that I dressed up to be like my bigger brother, right? There was another guy that was really influential for me in my early teen years. His name was Jimmy Cephalo. And Jimmy Cephalo played for the Miami Dolphins in the late 70s and early 80s. He was a newscaster for a news network in South Florida. He covered sports, and he did a news show every Monday night. It was called the Don Shula Show. Don Shula was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, and he did the Don Shula Show. And I went the public could go for the taping of the Don Shula Show, and I went, and for some reason I gravitate to successful people, and I like to learn from them, and I like to just kind of soak it up from them. And he was just somebody that I looked up so much that every week I would go and I would say hi. And I would say hi. My dad would take me to the show. I would say hi and have conversations with Jimmy Cephalo, and then it turned into my dad and I were his guest every week, and we sat with his wife at the front table while he was sitting there interviewing Miami Dolphins football players and Don Shula. And he also did a radio show during the day on an AM radio station, and it was all about the Miami Dolphins as a sports show. And I would go visit. Sometimes he would be broadcasting the radio show from different places, and I would hear, and I'd be with my dad, and my dad would drive me over to wherever he was broadcasting from. And I just remember as a kid, walking into the room when he was broadcasting remotely, and he'd see me and he'd smile and he'd say, "My good friend Jason just walked in the room," and it just made me feel like $1,000,000, right? So those are some of the big people that I really looked up to in my life that had a big impact on who I became.
Was it the fact that the perception was they were successful and they weren't struggling like the environment you had grown up in, or what was the attraction to those kind of people?
I honestly don't know. I thought that what they did and what they were able to do as a career was really cool and really exciting. And for me, it was something I was able to tap into when there was a lot of stress at home, when it was, um, just a little bit more difficult of an upbringing. It was freeing. I guess there was an excitement about it. It was something I looked forward to all the time. And so I honestly don't know. I think that might be what it was for me.
Are there any other key lessons or experiences that have stuck with you over the years since your childhood?
I growing up, this is one thing that that hopefully I can talk to you about in the near future a little bit more. I'm going to be launching a foundation, actually in January, launching a foundation that teaches leadership to our youth in schools. And one of the things that inspired me to do this is I didn't believe in myself during this time. When I was growing up, I doubted myself. I didn't have high self-esteem. There were times that I was bullied. And
Can you speak more to that? Because that is so foreign for people who have known you in, we'll just cut your life in half, the second half of your life.
yeah,
You are the one that's knocking on Muhammad Ali's door, and
Yeah.
you're the one that's kind of fearlessly trailblazing all these things. So that there's like an incongruency there.
yeah, I don't know. It was some people when they grow up at home and there's instability at home or uncertainty at home, it bleeds over into other parts of their life. And I think it bled over to me. In school, I never believed that I was capable of being a good student and doing well. And for most of all the way through my high school years, for crying out loud, I graduated high school with a 1.9 GPA. You had to have a 2.0 to graduate. And I used my sales skills to talk the counselor into let me graduate. Right. So, you know, not believing in yourself is just something some people just deal with it. And when you have low self-esteem, I think that other kids can pick up on that and I think that's where some bullying comes from. I don't know. But, there was just uh, the first half of I don't want to say the first half of my life, that first part of my life, it's it was uncertainty. It was a lack of self-esteem, not believing in myself, not quite frankly putting forth the effort that I needed to. And I think I got to a point in my life where I was, I had enough people come into my life that helped me see my potential to a point that I said, okay, this kind of sucks how I'm going. Let's try something different. And I think that's where it changed. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't bullied all the time. There was a couple years where there were a couple bullies where it was, it was enough that it had an impact on me, right?
When you look back, what kind of emotions or feelings does that invoke? Not the bullying specifically, but just, up through your high school years.
Yeah, as I look back now, there's a tremendous amount of sadness. If I'm, and I say that as I put it in the context of a lot of the kids that I see nowadays, and it just society, we are struggling as society. We are struggling with connection. We're struggling with meeting kids where they are and helping them go to where they have the potential to go. Life is so busy. It's so loud. Parents, where most parents are working 2 jobs. It's just a difficult life to a point that, quite frankly, where these kids need to be able to believe in themselves and need to have that connection and things like that, and they don't have it. So when I look back, my first thoughts are sadness, frustration, and also it's weird and ironic that there's a little bit of a sense of gratitude that I was able to go through what I went through so that I could get where I was supposed to go. It motivated me in some different ways. It pushed me in some different ways that maybe I wouldn't have been pushed if I hadn't been there.
To me, that's the message of hope and and understanding the work of divine design that happens in our lives. Like, I was talking to Bryant the other day, and he had recently been a part of a training where the message was we ought to stop talking to the youth about how much harder they have it. He said, I don't know if that's even true, because he says, think back to your own lives. We all had hard, and it was hard in our own respective way. So I don't know if the situations today make for a harder outcome for our children. There's certainly things that could, but we still live in a free society, and things are relatively good, especially in Cache Valley. What's great about this is when you can see the end, and then you can see the beginning. And you have no idea what happens in the middle, but you just see the result of you started from here, you ended up so much farther along. That's inspiring. So there's a lot of listeners who I think they want to pull those lessons from their early years. And it's hard. You get better at it as you get older. But I found that when you have the right question or the right prompt, you can just draw out those lessons and those defining moments in your life better. So for you, Jason, what would you recommend for someone who's curious about analyzing their life, drawing out key lessons? Do you have a question or maybe a prompt that they could use to get themselves, they could help to understand the emotional or the philosophical core of who they really are? Maybe even if you had a question of how you could dig to each of those, the emotional and the philosophical.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And a couple minutes ago, you asked me about what emotions my upbringing elicits now, right? And as men, especially as men, I think if we're not careful, the older we get, we don't feel as much. We're not as emotional of beings as maybe our spouses are, right? But looking back and analyzing our lives for what it is relatively easy. You stop, you look at where you've been, you look at the experiences you had, and you look at who you became because of it and why. And you just dissect it. So a prompt, I don't know that there's a certain prompt or a certain question, but everything I believe happens for a reason. I believe in that. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that when we have people come into our lives at certain times, that they come into a life and they come into our lives and they have an impact, period. It's either for good or for bad. They're going to have an impact. And being able to look back in your life and say, okay, well, how did I become interested in this? Well, you're going to be able to trace that back, how you became interested in it, because you had this experience, you had that experience. So I think dissecting your life's experience is good. I think for me, it's really humbling when you recognize and you give all the credit to Heavenly Father. That He knows you, He knows your personality, He knows your strengths, He knows your weaknesses. He knows the people that can come into your life and connect with you in a way that you'll listen, right? So I think just looking back and breaking things down for what they are, because you have the evidence now,
Yeah,
for what they are, and then being willing to give credit where credit is due to Heavenly Father, I think is so important. And then from that, if you can be humble about that, the clarity that comes from those experiences, that you have other experiences as you look back and reflect because of that humility.
I think a lot of people struggle with the idea that they feel like they missed opportunities when they were younger, when their time was more flexible, or when their opportunities were in front of them, or when they just had the ability to really chase something down and the price of failure didn't sting as much. Would you say the same thing to somebody struggling with that?
Well, I don't know how that's productive. For me to look back and to reflect on missed opportunities doesn't do anything for me today, and it doesn't do anything for me in the future. And quite frankly, I think it's a little bit of a cop-out, because if you miss one opportunity, you obviously took another opportunity. You did something else with that time. So So we can always have should-haves. We can always have those conversations of missed opportunities. But like I said, you took a different opportunity, and that's okay. That's what life's about, right? I mean,
Sure.
it's about living, having experiences. It's about getting beat up. It's hard. There's nothing. You look at anybody who's had any amount of success, and they have gone through the ringer to
It's a
get it.
common thread.
It's a common thread. They've gone through the ringer to have that success. They have been ridiculously hardworking and focused. Now, there's people that get lucky and come into wealth or come into certain circumstances and things like that. But most of those types of people are the ones that win the lottery, and then you go watch the show about the person who won the lottery, and then they're bankrupt within a certain number of years and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, but generally speaking, the most successful people are people who have gone through the ringer and, quite frankly, have done things that other people aren't willing to do, or have done them to a degree that other people weren't willing to do it to.
So this is a good segue into where I wanted to go next on this, because after understanding a little bit of where you came from, there's just so much in your life, Jason, that I think we could spend hours on. But this one is particularly interesting to me. So you're one of those people that I would say was born, or if not born with, developed very early an entrepreneurial itch. This is the part of you that I feel like I've seen the most of. So I want to drill deep into a couple of layers of your business experience and hopefully try to turn it into a tool that someone can take away to apply to themselves. So I want to do this in two parts, starting with your time in college. Let's start with your business at BYU, where you bought and sold rare books. How did that venture come about, and what did you learn from growing that and putting all the hard work in?
So when I was at BYU, and I've reflected on this a lot, why I've always had the entrepreneurial itch, as you put it. There was a lot of fear of having the same insecurities and lack of predictability and financial stress that I had growing up, that I was committed to not having that be in my life the rest of my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was newly married, and I had my first set of twins. It's hard to believe they're 16 now.
How old were you at the time?
I would have been 28 when I had my first set of twins, and that's when I was in grad school. No, I would have been less than that, probably 26. But while I was on my mission, I had a bishop in a ward that I served in that gave me a book, and I loved it. It was awesome. But what I loved about it is he told me where he got it. He got it on Deseret Book Auctions. They used to have an auction site. So when I got back from my mission, I loved books, as I do today. I've got a ton of books and I love them. Started buying books, and it got really, really expensive fast. You start getting in a hobby, and
As a hobby, a collector.
yeah, as a collector.
Yeah.
And I had a 600 square foot studio apartment, and there were bookshelves from like all the way around the whole thing. We lived around books.
Awesome.
But I was smart enough to know that, hey, if I'm not going to have the financial stress, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put $400 in a bank account, and I'll buy books. But then I have to sell some of the books that I buy, and I can't buy any more books until I have $600 in the bank account. Well, I did that, and then next thing you know, I would go to garage sales, and then I keep upping it and upping it and upping it, and then my knowledge of books grew, and it was at a pretty favorable time in the book market. It was, this time was right before the economic crash, and so I was selling books left and right, and by the time I graduated, it was just such a blessing. The timing was just so perfect, because right around the time I graduated, consumer confidence dried up, the markets dried up. You couldn't sell books if you wanted to. But
Yep.
the time that I had, I was able to put $250,000 in savings, which, by the way, was what freed me up to not go have to take. I had friends that were graduating out of graduate school that were taking whatever job they could find just to pay student loans, waiters and waitresses, that kind of stuff. I didn't have that stress of, well, I got to go just take whatever job. So I decided I would go sell pest control, which I'd said no to for 6 years.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I decided I would go sell pest control, and then the rest is history.
So I'll back up just a sec. So you make $250,000. This is over how long? Grad school is not that long.
This is a 2-year period.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, this was over a 2-year period. And
so this is like context like that is just what people who don't know you, like that's awesome. And for the people who do know you, they kind of nod their head and go, yeah, I could see Jason doing that. But I don't know of anybody else who could really do what you did. I mean, that's got to combine. You studied. I mean, you were a big history buff. You're a big fan of books. You love America, American history, American politics. Like it's in your blood. It had to have been a passion of yours beyond just a fruitful hobby.
It was, but you asked my wife about that time. You should interview her and ask her, but she'll tell you that she'll use the word obsessed.
Yeah.
I was obsessed. And I think that's what it takes a little bit to get successful, is we've got to get ourselves obsessed about what we're doing, and the results are just different. If we're just doing it and we're giving nominal effort, you're going to get nominal results.
Yeah.
If you get obsessed, you start finding things that other people didn't find. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And but also, again, I can look back and I can say 100% without a question in my mind, this was Heavenly Father's hand in my life, that the timing of which I was able to do this and the decisions that I was able to make because of this led to where I am today, led to being able to be a part of Fox and being able to be sitting here and talking with you today. It was because of that blessing in my life.
It makes me think of a quote from Jeff Bezos talking about kind of what you said, the power of obsession. And specifically, he relates it to business, where he talks about how business has the ability to get you a truncated return. Whereas, for example, in a game like baseball, the best you could possibly do is hit a grand slam and score 4 runs. You cannot possibly do any better than that. But in the world of business, it's as if you could hit a grand slam that scores you 1,000 runs. But it is only to those who are obsessed with it. It goes beyond just a high risk, high reward kind of mentality, and a lot more to pursuing something deeper than yourself that you give yourself to and you devote yourself to. I think there is so much good in that. And
I'm down. I've got to find this quote, because I just sent it to my boys the other day.
Yeah.
I'm going to share it with you real quick.
Go ahead.
I don't know a single successful person who isn't dangerously obsessed. And I actually believe that. And I think where and I don't know where the quote came from, but the word dangerously obsessed is that you are on the verge of, man, there's going to be other parts of your life that suffer because you're so hyper focused on what you're doing, right? It's just, you can't be so obsessed that you forget and neglect the other parts of your life. It can't become your God, right?
That's right.
And that's the fine line. So dangerously obsessed, I like those words, because it talks about the intensity which you have to have. And I think a lot of people miss the people that talk about Bryant White or Mike Romney or Jason Thompson or Glenn Beck. One adjective I can promise you that's used to describe them is intense.
Absolutely.
And it takes intensity, and intensity is not a bad thing. It can be overbearing, but really successful people know how to hone that and use it for good.
They're able to separate themselves from the outcome.
That's right.
Right? Like if you don't reach the goal, your life is not over. That's one thing I loved from my interview with Bo Nickel was he said, look, winning and losing feel the same after a period of time, because when you lose, it stings and it hurts, and then time heals all wounds. And as long as it didn't kill me, I'm hungry for the next fight. I'm ready. Let's go. And when you win, it feels so good. It's so validating. You get so much attention. But before you can blink an eye, there's another guy competing for the top spot or another guy who holds the belt, and you're back in the same place. Okay, it didn't kill me. Let's go. I'm back in this thing. So there's an intensity that you can that serves you versus you serving it. Josh Clare, the artist, talks about that the way that he words it, Jason. You're gonna love this. He calls it art with a capital A, where you are inviting God into your work as a partner into your work. You're obsessed. You're all in. You're not worried about yourself. It's not about the money or the pride or the ego. It's about doing art with a capital A that has the soul of something bigger than you captured in this project. To him, that's art. He says it doesn't mean it's a Michelangelo masterpiece. It could be very simple, but there's a powerful resonance to that piece. And to others, it can be in the business or the way that you influence the lives of others. We had talked about breaking this into two parts. The first being your college days. The second one you had already mentioned with door to door. This is where we can call some of these other things masterpieces in your life. Undoubtedly, this period of your life is a masterpiece in itself. Tell me about that transition from parlaying your success, selling books, to now going into pest control door to door.
So my buddy, I did not grow up a member of the LDS Church. I converted to the church when I was 16 in South Florida. My friend that introduced me to the church had sold pest control for a number of years, and we had multiple conversations about me selling, and I just never had the interest. And it was at this time that I graduated that I said, "Hey, why not? I don't need money. I've got money in the bank. I'm free to make some choices now." And so
what could it hurt?
Yeah, what could it, yeah, let's why not? So I flew down to Texas and just spent a week with him and went out and sold. And I actually did really well, and decided, hey, well, I'll go sell the next summer. I'm a competitive guy, so I'll go sell next summer. The next summer, I went and sold and did really well, surprised myself, did really well. And that was the point in which my buddy and I were considering starting our own pest control company, and Mike and Bryant were, talking about starting Fox, and then those conversations just kind of collided, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I love the story of Fox. So you were a part of this early group where the rug got pulled out underneath them.
Yeah,
it was a team that was marketing for Orkin, and it basically Orkin had chosen to take their marketing dollars that usually they paid door-to-door guys with. They decided to put that money into acquiring a different company. And so like a month or two before the summer, there's no deal now. And so the decision made, hey, let's just do this thing. You start a couple of branches the first year, but then you're a part of that original founding group. Your branches came along shortly after. So what do you remember about those early days partnering in your first Fox branches? And tell me a little bit about your personal and your family situation at the time.
It was, oh man, it was such an exciting time. You go from selling and doing well and selling for Orkin or selling for somebody else, to putting on your own shirt and going. And I will never forget the first day that we went. Mike and Bryant and Nate and I were all in a neighborhood in McAllen. And we were like the Four Stooges. We couldn't sell anything for the first hour or two. I was like second guessing. I was like, are we doing the right thing? Starting our own company here, right? But I'll never forget that excitement that I felt to put that shirt on and go knock for myself. That was really cool. That was really exciting. I was in a good place in life. My wife and I had our first two kids at the time, Josiah and Arlo.
You're about 30 years old, 28, 30 years old at this time?
About 28.
Yeah.
Life was really good. Financially, we didn't have any stress. So it was really interesting how, for me, the uncertainty drove me. the fact that I had the pen and I was writing the chapter was exciting to me, right? And for a lot of people, that's extraordinarily intimidating. It's overwhelming. For me, it just motivated me. It pushed me.
Yeah.
And the quicker that I learned that when I had a bad day or I didn't sell well, the quicker that I learned that the outcomes did not define who I was, the quicker I was able to refocus the next day and get myself back on track. Yeah, I'll share an experience with you about identity and work. One of the biggest problems that I see with door-to-door reps that are in a really intense selling program, like they're out for the summer and they're doing this day in and day out, is they take it too personal. And I've got to be careful because there's a certain degree where you have to take it personal to where it pushes you and it drives you. But the success versus failure, for whatever reason, as humans, we magnify our failures and we oftentimes can diminish our successes.
You tie them to your self-worth as well.
It's totally tied to our self-worth. I'll share an experience from when we sold Fox 2023. It was one of the hardest times of my life. I can honestly say that there was a couple months of depression. I was depressed. Millions of dollars in the bank. And I was depressed. And there was a realization that I had that was so powerful, Dallin. It was so powerful. It was the realization that I did not lose my identity when we sold our company. The realization was that company was a reflection of who we were. And that we could leave that for someone else. I will never forget when I had that realization that, wait a second, I did not just lose my identity. I shared it. It was very empowering to me. And I think that's important for us to remember. We've got to be careful how we judge our self-worth. We have to. That's the first thing that is going to lead someone to success or failure in the door-to-door industry, in entrepreneurship, is if you're tying your self-worth to an outcome, especially the outcome in one day, that's a big problem. Problem, because it makes it that much harder to overcome the next day, and then you're tying it to the week, and you're tying it to the next thing you get to the end of the summer, you can't go down that road.
And there's always something to be victimized by. It reminds me of I would call this probably a companion principle to that one that just fits really well. John Maxwell taught in the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? You have people that are passing the man by on the street, and the first person that passes by, of course, is the robber, and he says, "What's yours is mine, and I'm going to take it." And they take what they want, and then they leave. And then the rabbi passes by. And he says, well, what's mine is mine, and I'm going to keep it. And he goes along on his way. And then the Good Samaritan comes along, and he says, what's mine is yours, and I'm going to give it. And then John teaches an additional principle, and he says, but this is the pinnacle. It's when we can look at ourselves in the mirror and say, what's mine is not mine, but I'm going to manage it. I think that's a great companionship principle, because not only are you separating your self-worth, your emotional well-being from any outcome, good or bad, but you are looking at the resources that you have as more of a stewardship, not anything that you've gained nor lost per se. And I think the most successful people that I know, and when I say successful, Jason, I know a lot of people who have made a lot of money, but I know less people who have made a lot of money and their character has gotten deeper. Their family ties are stronger. Their faith has been magnified. Like, that is success. They're the people who can do both of those. They can control their emotional IQ, but they also understand that all of their possessions are a stewardship that can be given and that can be taken at any time. And you know what's great is it doesn't affect them because it wasn't theirs to begin with.
That's right.
I mean, imagine that.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yep.
Especially for someone that's young and is excited and hungry and competitive.
Yeah. And I would be lying if I didn't say that we all have to come to that realization over time. That I'm not so certain that that very many of your young entrepreneurs are tuned in to the fact that, hey, I'm going out and I'm being a steward of resources, that this isn't mine, but I'm being a steward. I've been tremendously blessed. What I'm building is great. I get to be a part of that, but it's not mine. But you come to realize that over time. You come to learn where to place value. You come to learn through your life experiences what is really important. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you can come to realize that you can have ridiculous success and make great money and also be a good father or a good mother and have great character and great values and have an impact in other people's lives. It is so empowering when you come to the realization that you can have both. You don't have to have one or the other. You can have both.
So let me get your thoughts on this, Jason. One of the things that you had told me, well, it might have been Mike or Bryant that told me this a long time ago about you, was in the early days of Fox, people might not know this, but at Fox Pest Control, it was bootstrapped. So besides a thin line of credit that seemed to come and go, but in the early years, it was just a way to strong arm the company into profitability as fast as possible. It's the only way a company like that can survive. And so that being said, you had spent plenty of time out on the doors knocking for minimal commission or no commission at all. In essence, you were working for nothing but profitability. That's insane. That is a level of sacrifice that I love. What do you remember about those days, working for yourself, but working for free?
Yeah, I remember those days very, very clearly. In the early years, I think the first year I sold 700 accounts that summer for our company for free.
Your average rookie sells around 60 to 70, by the way.
Yeah.
So 700.
Yes, I sold. I think the number was around 700 for free, and then I went and sold for Orkin another 300 to. I had savings, but to make money to be able to
put food on the table.
100%. Not have to dig into savings.
And then over what period of time did those 1,000 accounts come?
So I did. You're really quizzing me now. It was 3 or 4 summers that I did 1,000 or more, and during those early years, a lot of those were free accounts, and then I go and sell, and I'll tell you, it was a huge sacrifice. I remember, selling a ton of accounts in one area, coming home and then leaving for 10 days, and then coming back and leaving for 10 days. That was a regular part of our life early on. My father-in-law says it really well. He says, you can eat hamburger now so you can eat steak later, but most people choose to eat steak now and they have to eat hamburger later, right?
Yeah.
So we chose to eat the hamburger and to work hard and to save, and as a result, we had great savings that we could put that capital into Fox to grow the company.
I want to get into your passion about relationships and leadership. We were actually talking right before this about helping others realize the potential in themselves, not selling themselves short. Before we get there, I want to ask one more question on this topic of entrepreneurship in your early days of business before we move on. So in that specific area of building a business, where do you, Jason, think different than your peers in what you think matters? Like, what do you think is exciting or not exciting, worries that you have? Where do you feel the most divergent from what you believe about business from your peers?
That's a good question. I think one place for me, and I don't know why it is, but I like difficulty. I like it being hard. It's
You're insane.
Yeah, if it's easy, I'm easily distracted and I get really bored. If it's hard, it actually requires me to focus harder on it. And so I like hard things. I like uncertain things, because then I feel empowered um, to find a solution, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know. I think that separates me from other entrepreneurs. Some of the other entrepreneurs that I know, some of my closest business partners over the years are all about doing the hardest things that they can find, and I think that's why we found a lot of success.
Yeah. So with this next topic of leadership, I think we're going to bounce around a little bit from your political career back to Fox and then everywhere in between. When you think about developing leaders, it's probably correct to mostly think in terms of developing people one by one. And it gets harder to have that relationship with people the more your organization or the more your impact grows. At least it just takes a different persona. So this must be an interesting challenge for you now that you're in the public eye as a state congressman. First, the mayor of River Heights, after Fox, and now I'm in the state Congress. What have you learned about teaching leadership on a larger scale when those one by one methods you used to be in every day just aren't as accessible?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the really frustrating things for me right now um, is Dallin, really leadership is really a foreign principle to most people. It's people speak elements of leadership, but they don't know they're speaking it necessarily. It's like a little kid that speaks with their mom or their dad, and they don't understand what's the verb and what's the noun and how to break it down. They just speak it, right? So people speak little bits and pieces of leadership, but for a lot of people that whether it's in a state agency or it's in the business world or wherever it may be, if I ask them, hey, define leadership, what do you think leadership is? They will nibble around the edges, but it's very seldom do I get someone who in my mind nails what true leadership is. And so it's very frustrating because leadership is so individual. I mean, you look at John Maxwell and what he teaches in the 5 levels, right? And how dynamic leadership is, because you can be on level 1 with this person on your team and you can be on level 4 with another, right? It's very dynamic. What I have learned is you have to find the most natural leaders that you can find around you, and you have to talk true leadership principles. It has to become the language that you speak. And
Can you give me an example of that?
yeah. So for example, I believe that leadership is influence. I believe that leadership is speaking someone's potential to them, that they actually can start to clearly see it for themselves. That's what Stephen R. Covey would teach, right? And it's amazing to me where we're dealing with some really big problems, and then the conversations that we're having, quite frankly, can be very negative. They we don't work together. We don't put relationships first. We're always trying to put band-aids on problems instead of stepping back and saying, hey, let's look at the relationships that are involved here. Let's bring everybody to the table. Let's have a real conversation. Let's talk about what this can really become, and have that speech lead to a different reality versus just stumbling along to the next little temporary fix.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the things that I've been doing in my first term is I'm very deliberate about seeking out people who I feel get it. And we have very real conversations on leadership and on what we believe leadership is and how we feel we can influence other people. And we're starting to build a little bit of a culture. It's not we're not saying out in the open, hey, we're building this culture of, we're just having conversations enough where collectively we're moving forward, kind of with a united vision and a united language.
When you say get it, you mean somebody who like they can speak to that highest level of leadership, whether it's through experience or natural intuition, but like it's just somebody who sees it at a high level. Is
That's
that
right.
right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the research will overwhelmingly show anyone can learn leadership. Anyone can.
It's a skill.
It's a skill. You can learn it. But there are also people who come with natural skills. And so I think seeking out people that have those natural skills, you can have a greater influence on those people quicker. You're going to still grow your influence with everybody else, but you can have an influence on those people a lot quicker because they're just farther along. They just get it.
So let me give you two examples then. Let's say Christian Thorne. He was one of the partners at Fox Pest Control. You and Christian opened up several branches together and were very successful. Christian comes into your network. He is young. He is hungry. He is extroverted. He is magnetic. He's got $1 million smile, and just Christian will go and conquer the world. So contrast teaching someone like Christian leadership, how to develop and grow as a leader, versus somebody, and I'm sure that you can think of some people who did not have that. They were not as extroverted. They weren't as naturally talented as far as leadership and relationship building goes, and they really started at such a lower level. Compare and contrast how you developed both of those people to still become a great leader, because so many people look at the Christians of the world and there is, it's obvious that he's going to be a leader. I mean, look at him. He's awesome. And look at me. I'm shy. I'm nervous. I'm insecure. I have issues. I stumble when I speak. I'm stupid. I have a 1.9 GPA in high school. How do you handle developing both types of people?
Well, you have to develop both. Christian, I can't say enough good stuff about Christian Thorne. Amazing person, amazing character, very driven, very smart, a lot of natural leadership ability.
Yep.
And what I was trying to articulate before that maybe I was kind of struggling to articulate is a natural leader is going to be trying to develop everybody. That's what we're going to do. But I am going to put most of my time into developing people who quote unquote get it and growing that relationship and growing that influence, because that leads to the multiplying effect, right? Then they can go level 4 level leadership, reproduce yourself and other people, right? But at the same time, I'm going to be spending. There's been hundreds of reps that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years, thousands maybe, that where they may not have the natural skill level, but they start to get it over time, right? They start to figure it out over time. In that group, there's another divide. There's the group that maybe don't have all the natural leadership skills,
Mm-hmm.
but they're hungry and they want to learn.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side of that where they don't have it and they haven't gotten to a point where they have either been curious or seen enough of a glimpse of their potential where they can get out of their own head and get to a place where they actually believe that they can grow and become a great leader. And you spend a lot of time trying to influence those people, but you have to spend most of your time with the other two, the ones that get it. Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more to speaking potential to somebody who can't see it yet for themselves? So there are those people who, for whatever reason, they might not be curious yet, but they've never just had their vision raised by anybody. Can you give me an example of when you've seen that, or probably an example of someone that you've helped raise their vision and now they're really living more true to their potential?
Well, I've got maybe one better than that. I'll use myself here in this example. I had joined the church when I was 16. Ended up leaving home. Moved in with a family that introduced me to the church, and I got a phone call one Sunday in Houston. I got a phone call, and it was my bishop, and he said, there's a member of, again, you can't make this stuff up, right? There's a member of the ward who has heard your story, and he would like to meet with you. And so this particular gentleman's name was Frank Gay, Bill Gay. Bill Gay was the leader of the Mormon Mafia, is what it was known as. Mormon Mafia was Howard Hughes's business empire, and he really trusted Mormons, and Bill Gay was his right-hand man. And Bill Gay, before, I mean, he passed away probably 10 years ago, was a billionaire businessman, very successful, but he called me to his home. Again, I can make this up. Called me to his home. I go to his house. Wife opens the door. I go into his office. I'm waiting for him to come. I'm looking around the room. There's all these princes and kings and prophets and presidents, and pictures on the wall with him. And I sit down, and this 80-year-old man walks in the room and tells me that he's heard my story and wants to hear more about my story and is curious and interested in me. And this leads to a great relationship where he says, hey, I want to help you realize your potential in life. And if you'll listen and you'll let me mentor you, I'll mentor you. And he did. For the next 2 years, we talked on the phone once a month. He held me accountable. I went from being the 1.9 GPA in high school to going to UVU. It was UVSC at the time. And I got a 3.98 GPA my first year at UVSC and transferred to BYU. I never took the SAT or the ACT. And all of a sudden, this kid that went to 5 different high schools, graduated with 1.9 GPA, is now at BYU. Why is that? Well, it's because somebody believed in me. It's because somebody realized that I have potential. And not only did he realize that, over time, he helped me to see it in myself. And it was just little glimpses along the way. Like I would, oh, maybe he's onto something. And then I'd get really discouraged and really frustrated. And then, oh, well, no, this guy is really, really important. And he and he would follow up, and he would talk with me and ask me questions, ask me things about I'm curious about, and what my goals were. And he cared. He did what a level 4 leader does, is he worked to reproduce himself and me. But I wanted it. I didn't know I wanted it. He helped me to see that. Not everybody is willing or ready. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things about my career in pest control, was seeing tremendous potential. And I can think of a whole bunch of people that just had ridiculous potential, but would never, for whatever reason, allow me to help them see it.
Why is that a problem in so many people living beneath your privileges?
I don't know. I think it's Satan's number one tactic in this world. Maybe tied with right now, one of the biggest problems that we're having, obviously, is blurring the lines between truth and false, right? The world says that, well, truth, it's true to somebody, so it must be relative, right? And but no, truth is truth. And so I think this is just one of his tactics that he uses, because think about how when we realize our potential and when we are empowered and we become builders of people and things, that's a threat. That's a threat to Satan and his plan. He doesn't want to have builders, right? He wants people to be subjects, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not to believe in their God-given potential.
Yeah.
And I've seen it, and it's the most bittersweet thing, right? I've seen it, and it was so frustrating for me. But then I've seen people who, man, I thought maybe they would never come around, and they just turned out to be unbelievable leaders and tremendously successful. And it's one of the most fulfilling things, I think, for my career.
It's got to be one of the highest return things that you could do with yourself is learning how to become a leader and to develop other leaders. You talk about level 4 leadership. John Maxwell teaches the first level of leadership is positional. It's you follow me because I'm your boss. I have a position. Level 2 is permission. I might have a position of authority over you, but I have your permission because we're friends. We have a relationship now. Level 3 is production. I'm kicking butt. I'm inspiring people to follow me. I'm leading from the front, essentially. Level 4 is developing people to become those level 3 leaders. And level 5 is the pinnacle. And that's where you are developing level 4 leaders who are in turn developing their own. So that's the multiplying effect you said. And I think it's powerful, Jason, because God has stated that it is his work and his glory to bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man. He has also said that men are that they might have joy. And those two things go hand in hand. So if you can partner yourself, art with a capital A, if you can partner yourself in that work of raising the vision of other people, that they might have joy, that they might work to have eternal glory with a loving Heavenly Father. There's things that need to be done. There's covenants that need to be made. There's knowledge that they need to receive. But how can they do that if their view of themselves and their self-worth is in the trash? Like, that is a noble calling to be a leader. And that's why at Fox we talked about we were a leadership development company that just happened to do pest control. You've taken that, and it's a principle that applies to a wide variety of careers and circumstances. You're a leader that just so happens to be in politics. You're a leader who happens to have X, Y, and Z, but it's all about developing people, the relationships.
It's all about people. It's all about relationships. It's all about people, and getting people to realize that it's about relationships is where you get things done. Is really hard, because for a lot of people, relationships are the thing that prevent things from getting done, especially in the political world. So that's really frustrating for me right now. Is trying to help people see. I'll use an example, and this isn't intentional. We have some of the best people in education in the state of Utah, some of the best, but between the schools on a local level at a local school district, they're called LEAs, the state school board, and then the legislature, there's a lot of problems. You have a huge system, right? A huge system. A lot of things are happening. Things are very dynamic. They change very quickly. There's a lot of reporting and accountability metrics that can be very frustrating for different people. And what I've realized, it is so clear to me that a vast majority of our problems can be solved by putting the relationship first, by communicating well, and by having good leaders. And you can have great leaders that maybe don't place enough emphasis on relationships. You can have a great relationship person who's not a great leader, they're a manipulator. You have to be a leader that's focused on relationships for pure reasons of influencing people to do that which is good.
Have you found that trait to be lacking in public office? We don't need to name any names.
Oh, no. I won't name any names. And this won't be surprising to anyone. It's lacking everywhere. It's lacking in church organizations. It's lacking in government. It's lacking in our different institutions. We look at some of our problems in higher education right now. It's because we have a void of leadership. We have some of the most brilliant people in higher ed.
Yeah.
Right? But some of the most brilliant people aren't some of the best leaders necessarily, right? Mm-hmm. So right now there's a huge emphasis on saying, hey, we have to have leaders, people who can influence other people to do that which is good. And so yeah, there's a void in leadership everywhere. And for me, it's not exciting that there's a void in leadership everywhere. It's exciting that I can have that much more influence in different places, but you have to seek the opportunities. And you mentioned the 5 levels. There's one level that a lot of people seem to want to skip or they miss or they underemphasize, and it's the production level. People are watching you. They're watching what you produce. Your ability to influence someone else is greatly diminished if you aren't holding yourself to the same standard and if you are not producing. It's just simple. No one likes a positional level leader that just, hey, I'm the boss, go do what I tell you to do.
Yeah.
People have respect for leaders who produce. And becoming a leader isn't the time where you're like, well, I've already done the work, so now I can sit behind the desk and point. It's like you said before, leading from the front.
Jason, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I want to end by asking you 2 questions I ask every guest. The first would be, if you could go back to talk with Jason Thompson in his college days, early 20s, what would be the most important advice you would give him to assure him of his path, his direction, and his future?
What I would say is your Heavenly Father loves you. He's mindful of you. He's in charge. Trust in Him. Work hard. Believe in yourself. And watch what He does. I've learned that over the years. It's been a little bit harder sometimes to learn that it's God's will and not my will. But I think that would be the advice that I would give myself.
My second and final question is, what's the kindest thing anyone has ever done for you?
So what the kindest thing anyone's ever done for me? I mean, I can think of a lot of really kind things. My wife does kind things all the time. One of the kindest things is agreeing to marry me, probably. But if I really think of one of the kindest things that someone has ever done for me that's really impacted my life in a tremendous way, there's one particular person. I haven't talked about her a ton before, but her name was Mrs. Tippett. And Mrs. Tippett was my guidance counselor at Kingwood High School in Houston. And by the time that I was in my senior year, I was at my 4th high school and had to go to my 5th high school in the evening time in order to be able to graduate. And Miss Tippett, that woman was not going to let me fall through the cracks. And I met with her on a regular basis. It seemed like every day I was in her office talking to her. And she believed in me. And like I said, there was no way I was falling through the cracks. I was going to graduate and I was going to be a success. And she made me feel that. And she invested the time in me and she really cared. And I think that's one of the kindest things it's just had a life-changing impact on me. There's a lot of others that people have done, but that's one that, man, I think back on and reflect very, very often.
Well, it's a good salute to the power of relationships, the power of people development, speaking potential to others so clearly they can start to see it in themselves. Jason, thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast on Instagram at the handle Momentum Theory Pod, where I'll be announcing new episodes weekly, as well as sharing my top takeaways from every conversation. As always, I invite you to please share this episode with anyone you think could benefit from the conversation. So long for now, and thank you for tuning in.